Welcome to Fundamentals of Production Advanced Lab, the final pleat video, cartridge pleats. So cartridge pleats are a historical form of pleating. This actually was a form of pleating that was used before we did, as humans, discovered knife pleats and box pleats and used them all the time like we do today. You have seen cartridge pleats before, but you may not have known that that's what they were. So here are some examples of what cartridge pleats look like. You know those Elizabethan ruffs? Those are cartridge pleats. These are cartridge pleats, and so much more. So here we go. We're going to do some cartridge pleats. The supplies that you need for this particular pleats is you're going to need, again, a marking tool of some kind. Again, I suggest pencil, not marker. I'm just using marker for the video. You will definitely need your ruler this time. Straight pins. You will also need needle and thread. This will be really important in a few minutes. So make sure you have those. Scissors to cut your thread, your handout. And then for this pleat, we actually need two different sizes of fabric cut out because cartridge pleats by themselves don't function. Cartridge pleats have to be mounted to something else. That's how they get attached to a garment. The knife pleats and the box pleats can kind of just go together, but there's an additional step with the knife pleats and cartridge pleats. Sorry, let's try that again. Knife pleats and box pleats can just be stitched directly onto the garment the same way any other seam is stitched together with the machine. Cartridge pleats have to be applied by hand. So part of this process is learning how to cartridge pleat and then how to mount it to the garment. So that's what these two pieces are for. So your smaller rectangle, square, this is going to become our mounting band. And then our longer one is going to be the actual cartridge pleats. So following the instructions, the first thing we are going to do is we have our square. We're going to fold it in half. Nice and neat. And I'm just going to throw some pins in here real quick to keep this together. And now we need to sew this closed with either a 1/2 inch or a 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. I'm going to go ahead and do 5/8 of an inch and then come back once I have that done. So now this is stitched. I have a little tube and we don't want any raw edges sticking out of any of our garments. So we're going to turn this right side out real quick. And I'm going to hop over to the iron and give this a good press so it lays nice and flat and doesn't keep being a tube for me. So now this is pressed, it's nice and flat. This is our mounting band. I'm going to set this aside for the moment and we'll come back to it. So now onto the larger rectangle. The first thing we want to do is we want to fold this edge under 2 inches. So I'm going to just mark with my pencil. I'm actually marking 4 inches down because when you fold 2 inches over, it's actually this edge is going to land at 4 inches. So I'm just doing a couple of quick little marks so I can see exactly where my 2 inches are. Yeah, I'm good. Okay, so now I'm going to fold right onto those lines. Boop. And now this is folded over 2 inches. I want to press this with the iron and then I'll come right back. So now this is pressed. It is time to start marking our rows of dots. And you can mark your rows of dots either from this side where the fold is or on this side. It really doesn't matter. If the reason we're doing it this way is because this gives us a little bit more grip when we are sewing it together. And traditionally, cartridge pleats, the fabric is folded under slightly, so we don't have any cut edges right here where the pleating is going to take place. So I'm going to mark it just like I do in the picture where the dots are on this side and the fold is on the back side. So the first thing I need is I need to mark all of my dots 1/2 inch apart and 1/2 inch down. So I'm just going to line my ruler up right here at the edge not a pencil, a marker so you guys can see. You know what, I'm gonna flip this over so that I'm looking at it at a direction that makes it a little easier for me. So here's my fold. I'm lining up my ruler so that the 1/2 inch line of the fabric is marked up. And then I'm just gonna do a row of dots 1/2 inch apart. So, boop. So, there's my dots. This is gonna take me a minute, so why don't we speed through this row. I'll pause for a second when we start the next row, and then we'll speed through that one. So, here we go. Let's speed through. All right, so my first row is fully marked all the way down, 1/2 inch across. Now I want the next row to be 1/2 inch down from this row. So that's 1 inch from this edge. And again, I want it to be at those 1/2 inch marks, and I want those to be exactly across from each other, okay? They are parallel, perpendicular. They're the same direction. They're in the exact same spot, just a little further down. It is too late at night, y'all, for me to remember the difference between parallel and perpendicular. Though they are fun to say. Okay, so again, this is gonna take me a minute, so let's let's speed through. All right, my 2 rows of dots are fully marked. Close up my marker now. Now the next thing that we want to do is we are going to use these dots to sew a running stitch. So our needle is going to go in and out on each one of these dots. So we're going to do 1 row and leave a tail, and then do another row and leave a tail. So let me get my thread ready. Boop. Probably should have pre-threaded this. Oh well. All right, we are just doing a running stitch, but we do want to make sure that we tie a knot in the end because we don't want this running stitch to come out. We're actually using this as a form of gathering in just a minute. So I'm gonna start down here, and I'm gonna start with my knot on the bottom, I think. That's just where I want it. Okay, so I'm gonna go down in 1 dot and back up in another, just like this. So the next one is down and up exactly on those dots. Okay, you guys see where I'm headed? All right, so this is going to take me a minute to sew, so let's speed through me sewing this. Okay, so that row is done. I'm gonna just take my thread off, and I've got this really obnoxious long tail. That's fine, I'm gonna leave it. You definitely want some level of length, probably at least like, I don't know, 6 or 7 inches coming off the end, so that whenever we pull these threads, you still have plenty to grab in the first place. Okay, so now we're gonna repeat with the other row exactly the same way. So my knot is on this side, and I want to come up through this first dot exactly like I did this one. So that's going to take me a second, so let's speed through that. All right, so now we have 2 rows of a running stitch that run exactly parallel to each other. Yep, it's parallel. I was thinking about it while I was sewing to remember which one was parallel and perpendicular. And we've got these nice long tails. Now, if you get to the end and your tails are not coming out of the same row, then you have either missed a stitch or something was marked wrong. But it should be exactly the same with your thread tails coming out of the same side. So now we're ready to make these cartridge pleats, and it's really simple. You just take your thread tails and pull. So see how this is kind of bunching up from the top. Let's see if I can do this from the top. when we pull these, and you want to pull both threads simultaneously, it gathers the fabric up in this kind of figure 8 shape. Okay, they're getting a little messy. Just like that. Okay, so that right there, that is a cartridge pleat. We have done rows of stitching. They're in the middle there, and they have created a cartridge pleat. Now, these can change size depending on how big your stitch is. The closer your stitches are together, the smaller these are going to be. If your stitches are further apart, these are going to be a lot bigger and wider. So like those Elizabethan ruffs that are like 3 inches wide, the stitches are like that far apart. They're really far apart in order to create that effect. And you can also, so with cartridge pleats, you can do a couple of things. You can either pull them really tight. Be careful not to pull them too tight and accidentally pull your knot through. Okay, I'm gonna fuss with the end right here so that it lays like I want it to. You can pull them really tight, as seen in some examples. These are super tight, and look how much full and flared out that gets. You can pull them tight like that, or you can loosen them up like this and spread them a little further apart. Now, if you spread them further apart, you would want to make sure that all of these are nice and evenly spaced. So see how this one's starting to come out? You would want to probably put a pin right here once you decided how tight or loose you wanted these to be. Put a pin in and then do like the anchor hook, anchor twist thing, like figure 8 around the pin, and that's going to keep it from coming out. And then you can play around with how far apart you want these guys spaced. So for the purpose of this video though, I like my cartridge pleats tight. I just think they look really pretty when they're pulled tightly together. So I'm going to pull these nice and tight together. Not super, super tight that they are completely unmovable, but tight enough that they're staying kind of stacked on top of each other like this. There you go, right there. So there's still a little bit of wiggle room in there. I haven't pulled them insanely tight. I'm gonna hold, come on. I'm gonna hold this in place, stick my pin back in, and then do my anchor twist so that this doesn't loosen on me. There we go. Okay. So there we go. So those are cartridge pleats, but they're not done because they're not attached to a garment. That's what we need our mounting band for. So our mounting band is plenty long for this. And as you can see from the look of these cartridge pleats, this is why we can't put them in the sewing machine. We actually have to go in and catch each one of these pleats at the top and at the bottom, whichever one. It kind of depends on how you want that to lay. So let's say we had a garment and we wanted this to stick straight out from the bottom of our bodice. We would want to stitch both the top and bottom like that. You can have it where just the top loops are caught like this. I think that's what I'm gonna do because that is just gonna look nicer. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to just lay my mounting band right against the top edge here, okay? So that when I stitch it together, this is gonna fold up and we'll see our stitches that way, okay? So now we have to hand stitch each of these pleats with a whip stitch, okay? So give me just a second and let me rethread my needle and I will show you a couple of stitches at regular speed and then we will, pun intended, whip through it. Okay, I am all threaded up and ready to go. So I've actually done a double thread because if we were doing actual cartridge pleats, I would probably sew it with a double threaded needle because on a full garment, if the skirt is cartridge pleated, it takes so much fabric and it's gonna be heavy. And this is only being held together by hand stitches. So you want it to be nice and extra strong, especially for theater work because actors do all kinds of wild, crazy things. So the hardest part is just getting started because you kind can sort of pin everything together, but you have to be careful when you pin it as well that you don't crush your pleats in a weird way. Right, there we go. That's gonna make it easier. Right, there's my needle and thread. Now I'm going to start with this ridge right here, and I'm going to hide my knot in this ridge. And I'm just gonna go straight in there, pull my knot in, make sure it collapses all the way in, and I'm gonna take one stitch all the way through that one, making sure that it lands in the valley of that pleat completely, just like that. And I'm actually going to do that one again just for security purposes. Okay, I'm going to trim these thread tails down because they're getting caught in my other thread. All right, so 2 stitches on like that. And then I'm going to go into the next ridge, which is this one right here. Just go down into it because remember we're using a whip stitch, and take 2 stitches in this one. Try to, as you are stitching this, make sure that you are bringing your needle down at the same height, that you're not going like 1/2 inch down on one and 1/4 inch down on the other, that they're evenly spaced from the top edge here. Oh my goodness, it's because I'm recording a video that this thread wants to tangle on me. Come on. All right, there we go. So that's 2 stitches in that one, and you can already kind of see the beginnings of how this gets stitched together. So I'm going to speed run through whipping the rest of these on because you don't want to sit and watch me hand sew this at regular speed. And when we're all done, we will look at it in normal speed to see how this all goes together. Okay, so now it is all stitched on, but before I flip all of this up, I want to deal with these tails right here to make sure that this stays tight all the way across, because if these were to come out, it actually will help some of these pleats come loose. So I'm going to take my tails and hope that I did not cut them too short earlier, and I'm going to just tie them together to maintain the tension of these stitches and the pleats gathered together so they look nice and crisp. Okay, and then we will take a look at how these pleats are laying on the mounting band. There we go. Okay, so now here's what they look like on the mounting band. Okay, they're all nice and neat and pretty. So this is what it would look like on the right side of the garment with the pleats hanging down. Yeah. If we were doing like an Elizabethan ruff out of this, what we would do is we would put the mounting band, it would be the same width of whatever these turn out to be, and we would whip each side to the band all the way across so that it sticks directly out from the neck. But that is a cartridge pleat.